Welcome to my Theater Teacher Resource video. This preview offers the same high-quality content as my paid lessons. The only difference is that the full versions include both digital and physical interactive notebooks, and the intro and outro of these videos have been removed for a more streamlined student experience. Both are linked below. Now, on to the lesson. So today I am going to show you how to create a 3D perspective set design in a Google slide. So here is my Google slide, and I've got a few different templates right here. So I've got the example with instructions on it for that slide. Then this one is the easier 3D set design to do your walls and create the back wall and these side walls. And then I'm going to show you how to do the entire thing from scratch right here on this one. So first thing, I have put a dot for point perspective. I did make it so you can move it. The rest of the stuff on this slide you can't move. But this, if you needed to move it, you could. How I did that is I went where the stage is, so the back wall of the stage to the front, and I did an X on this side, an X on this side. I did not count the apron, and then I put it in the center of that space. So if you're doing it from just a plain blank white slide, then that is what you would do. So the first thing we want to do before we start designing anything is come up to view, and you've got some snap to grid or guides, so then it would snap your lines to where it wants your lines to go, and then also show the guides. So this is the center of my piece, but this is the center of this stage. So I want to turn all of that off and make it so that it does not snap to anything, because if it does snap to things, it makes it a lot harder to get your line straight and be able to see what you need to see. So that was insert. So you're going to go to snaps, and then there's the grid, and then there's the guides. I do guides, and then I get rid of my guides, which is kind of how I work with that. So then I'm going to create some lines. So my lines are going to be from this back wall, back side wall, through my middle point to the edge of the stage. So it's got 3 points that you're trying to hit. Now, over here, I want to do the same thing, but I need to make sure that my lines are exactly lined up and even on both sides. So I'm actually going to create another line, and then I'm going to hold down my shift key and come along this back wall and start at the back space where it crosses that line. The shift key, if I hold it down, makes it so that the line stays flat, so that I can see exactly where I start over here. And then because that line is already flat, I'm just going to Control Copy, which is Control C, a paste, which is Control V, and I'm going to come down to this point and make sure that I hit that line right there. So I will create another line and come from the center point right here, and you see if my little cursor kind of disappears, that means I am in the very center of that, because it goes white when it's on the black line. I'm going to come down here, and that should be in the very center of my box. Now, something that I personally like to do is I like to have my point be in front of everything else. So I'm just going to grab these additional boxes that I've made, and I'm going to come up here to Arrange, Order, and send it to the back. That way, when I come over here and click, I can click on my dot. If you haven't sent this to the back, when you click on the dot, because the lines are over the dot, it is not going to work, and you're not going to be able to click on that dot. Next, we want the back wall. So then this will create the side walls, and we want a back wall right there. I'm going to do that by just taking a shape and doing a square/rectangle. I'm going to hit all of the lines on their corners right here. And this is where the snap to lines really make it harder, because you won't be able to position it exactly where you want. On my slideshow that I did showing how to, teaching how to do this, mine were a little off because I didn't know how to do that. And then if it's on this side and not quite on this side, it usually means I just need to kind of adjust it over and make sure that everything lines up equally. Now, because it has a gray background, it takes away my point back here. So I'm going to go transparent with it for a moment so that you can see what I've done. And then I'm going to put this behind just the dot. So I'm sending it backwards just behind this dot because the dot is in front. And then you see how this crosses right back there. I'm actually going to make my box white so you can't see it. You can still see the dot. And that's created my back wall and my sides. You could take these lines and just do mini lines right there instead of doing the full line all the way through and putting something in front of it. But I prefer to do it this way. It's just a little bit easier in my opinion. So now when I am creating everything else, it's going to be from the point perspective. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a door. So with that, I'm going to create another line from my point perspective. So I'm going to take it there first. And then I am going to follow the diagonal up to wherever I'm going. You see how that diagonal kind of creates that perspective. So I'm going to drag it over to where I want my door, which is right there. And then I'm going to create another line. Oops, where's my line? There we go. Right up here, and take it from the exact same point, but this time I would be dragging it down. Now you can see that this is actually exactly along the bottom of the wall. That's what you want. Your door does not open above the wall or into the floor. So I actually am not going to need that line. I'm going to need some downward lines. So I'll grab my line. I'm going to hold the shift while I'm dragging this down so that it snaps to. See how that makes it still snap to the guidelines even though I've taken them off. So I'm going to go all the way down to that bottom part. And then I'm going to do that again by just copying and pasting. I'm going real fast. You can always slow this down if you need to, or speed up if you need to do that too. Whenever I move this part of the line, I'm holding my shift down to make sure that I am staying straight. Move that up. And then when I am done with all of that and it's where I want it to be, I'd go to this line. Oh, I held my shift down for that. That's why it did that. That's why I got rid of the snap to guides earlier. And then I'm going to bring my lines to where they need to be for that door. Oh, sorry. There we go. Okay. So this is my door, and then I would clean up the edges and just kind of make sure everything is looking good. If I am doing this professionally, I would be measuring all of this, but this is just for me to start getting an idea of where I want things to go before I make my 3D model. So normally I would measure a door and have everything be in perspective, but for this activity for beginners, we're just going to have some fun with it and make it look good. Next thing I need for my door is a door handle. So I'm just going to come and grab my circle. And I want my door to open this direction. I'm going to make that darker. So there is my door. So you would do the same thing with windows, bookshelves, other doors, anything. If it is on the back wall, however, because you can see this back wall is parallel with where the audience would see, you don't have to do the point perspective because you're not dragging it to where the point perspective would matter. So if I was going to be doing a window right here, I could easily just create a window right there. Oh, I got rid of the wrong part. There we go. And then if I wanted the window to have panels on it, the undo button is your friend if you make a mistake like that, I would just create panels by doing some more lines. And I'll come from those centers. So this part is easier on the computer than it is in person. When drawing, you can line up right here and then use your shift and pull it down and get it right in the middle. And you can do that again. With another one, I would make this a little bit darker. And I am also going to make the line of the weight of the line a little bit darker so that it looks like panels. And then if I want to make it even, again, you can see that this will show me where the center is. I can make these even also by, you see how they're a little off right here? I'm going to grab these 3 lines by holding that shift key down while I am clicking on each one. And then I'm going to put distribute horizontally, and it'll make it even for me. And then you can see that this side is a little bit further over than I'd want. It can always readjust, and it'll show me when I am center right there. Then I'm going to copy and paste this line right here and just hold my shift button down. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm just going to push my arrow key up since it did not want me to let it snap in right there. It wanted it center. And then I've got that one right there too. So you can create windows or bookshelves or anything on this back wall, but you wouldn't do the point perspective for the back wall. One thing I also like to do is once I have a piece that I'm going to keep where it's at, and I know it's what I want it to look like, I am going to make it a black outline. And oftentimes I just go a little bit darker on it so that I can see where things are going to be at. You do not have to do that. That's just my personal preference. And then I'm going to get rid of this top line and this bottom line because we are just going to have an open ceiling up here. We don't have a chandelier or need anything up there. That's where the lights are coming from. And then I'm going to show you how to create a table, a chair, anything like that that you might need. So everything kind of starts off with that same exact idea. So I am going to create 2 lines coming down. I'm going to make a table right here. I'm going to just copy and paste that so it's the same length as both pieces, and then come across to this side. So I've got these coming from the same spot right here. And then to make a table, you're going to create some additional lines for the table space. I'm going to hit shift again to make it stay more stable. That is further than my other one is, so I'm just going to bring that in. And then let's actually put my table down here a little further. All right, so when I'm doing my table, this would be the top of the table, and then I want my table legs to come down from each corner because that's where table legs are from for this one. If it was a center table leg, like if it was a circle table, I could do it right there. But I'm just going to grab my lines, hit shift, keep them straight, and then I'm going to copy and paste these ones for sure because I want them to be the correct height. All right, so I want all these legs to be the same height or my table would tip over. So I've got my legs right here. Oh, that was not lined up. There we go. That one is not quite either. And then how the tabletop right here would be in the way, I would take this leg and hold shift and just take it down to that line so that it doesn't look like my table is glass, unless your table is glass. But if it's not glass, you don't want it to be see-through. So then there are those parts, the legs. Then I've got the edges. I'm going to clean up right here. Oh, it's snapping back to my guidelines. Get rid of that. Okay. And this one's just a little off. And then you take these point lines and go down also. So that is how you make a table. And then I'm going to show you how to do a chair. So you do the same idea with the chair over here. So if I had a chair on this side, I would have my 3 lines coming down from that point right up there. And I want 3 lines instead of 2 because one of the lines is going to be the back. And then, oh, there we go. So they're all to the same point. There we go. And then as I do this, I'm going to have my lines horizontal be, of course, still horizontal and the same way. So I'm going to make a line right here. That is the seat of the chair. And I'm going to put another one right there. So there's my chair. Then I want my straight lines. I'm just going to copy and paste this to make it easier. So this is the legs of the chair, but it's also going to go up the full back because a lot of times that is the same piece. So I'm going to copy and paste that one. And then to make sure that my chair legs are the same as this, I'm going to take this leg and put it right there next to the other one and make sure that they're the same length. And then I'll put them at these two front areas. Copy again. And then put that right there. And then I would clean up, and then I would clean up these lines too. So hopefully you can see how that works. Now that you know how to do this, you can kind of mess with this. I could obviously make these a taller backing. If I didn't like the look of that, I would just come back to my point and make sure that I stay consistent with that. And then I could bring these up right here and just kind of mess around with the look of how everything is. All right, so once I get this part done, I would go through and all of my walls and everything, I would make black and have them be a thicker line just so that it stands out more. Make sure that it looks really professional, really good. Okay, you can also do it by selecting a bunch of them and making them all darker and 2-point. Obviously, I didn't finish that. Then if you want to, once you get done with this, you can go and make a copy of this slide. So Control copy, Control paste, and it'll give you a second copy right here. Then you go online. So we go to Insert, Image, and then go Stock or Web. And you can look up things like Square Table and see what looks good in your space. So right here, this table does not have legs. I would not use that one. There's a good one that I would use. I would look for one that is the same kind of perspective of my table right here. Let's use that one. I would get rid of the background. You can just go to this Remove Background button. And then make it so that you can see the style of pieces that you are looking for and kind of place them. First, have your perspective drawing before you do this because this is more just for fun, so it's easier to kind of visualize your space. You can do the texture on the walls and start looking at that and what that would look like. So if I wanted brick, I could just get back to my pictures. If I wanted brick, I could do brick and find a picture of the bricks, find ones that I like that are a little further away. And I could choose this picture and put it on this back wall. And then I could also find a picture of a window and kind of, oh, that was a great way to spell that. Anyway, I can take whatever picture I want. If you double click it, you can go in and trim it down to the sides and the size and area that you want it to be. And I would take that, click off, make it smaller, and put it where I want the window to be, extend this wall out, and do all of that fun stuff. So once you get done with this part of you creating your own design and figuring it out, go ahead and do this. You can also click on the wall if you've made a complete wall, and you could paint it with any color that you want. You could do wood flooring and just kind of have a lot of fun. All right, so then after you do that, you can go ahead and just kind of create the looks that you're looking for and what you're wanting to do. If you want this shape to be a little bit different, You can manipulate the area of it. Then if I want my brick wall back, I would just put it over that and kind of see how things look. This is a really fun thing to do for those of you that love creativity. This can be a great way to design your set. So thank you for watching. Please help support me by checking out the link to my growing Technical Theater Teachers Pay Teachers shop. Teachers, please like and share so I can continue making content.